Oh, that's
Blistering starts to a tennis match.
Shakespeare got it wrong. It wasn't King Lear. It's King Lear.
LeBron James with no regard for human.
Yuvraj Singh finishes things off on style.
This is a News Laundry podcast, and you're listening to NL Playoffs.
Hello and welcome to NL Playoffs. My name is Gowtham. I have with me my co-host Aniketh. Aniketh, say namaste.
Hello world.
This is episode 26 of our still small podcast. We are recording this on the 26th of August. It is about 9 p.m. India time right now. We thought actually that we could talk a lot about this and that, but we have a very interesting guest who has joined us. So I think we should stick to one major topic, which is football. I know which is super large in scale and all of that, but I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about football, mainly because we have our guest Ranjit Bajaj showing up on our small podcast. So Ranjit, welcome to our show, and just great to have you on.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, Aniketh and Gowtham, and thanks Lippy for having me here on Team News Laundry. And in fact, it's a pleasure to be on here. It's not small at all. In fact, you guys are the place to be. At least we get the facts.
There you go. Absolutely. There's a nice plug for News Laundry. Pay to keep news free, guys. So Ranjit is an entrepreneur. He's also a current owner and also a manager. Is that right, Ranjit? Of Minerva FC, Minerva Punjab FC. He's also a former India under-19 football player. He's a mountaineer. I'm just reading out his Twitter bio for now. He was also on Roadie season 1, which is very interesting. That might be a conversation for another day, but still very nice, very interesting. But you also say that you're a nation record holder, Ranjit. So please tell us what record you hold.
So do you want to start with that? Okay, fine. Perfect. Okay. So this is a very accidental record because when I was saying one of the things in the Twitter bio is mountaineering. While mountaineering, there's a mountain called Mount Pomori. Mount Pomori in Nepalese, Pomori means daughter of Mount Everest. Why? Because you've got Mount Everest and you've got Mount Pomori and then you've got Lhotse, which is the fourth highest mountain. And it's a three mountains together. And you've got Everest Base Camp right in the middle, and that's what's used to climb all three mountains. So the ultimate aim was to do the biggest thing I can to challenge myself, and the quest was always Everest. But then coming to know that, Everest has become very commercial and it's just about money, and real mountaineers make their own routes and the Sherpas don't do it for you. And any other mountain other than Everest, which is above 7,500 or 8,000, is as difficult or even tougher. So, getting prepared for those mountains was there before I got married. This is before I got married and before my wife banned me to go to the mountains anymore. So this mountain was Mount Pomori, 7,200 meters, and no Indian had ever scaled that mountain. So that was the thing that, I have to come and be the first Indian. Even though that was not possible because on the mountain, you can't decide that. The mountain decides for you. There was a storm and the entire thing was cancelled. You had to come down. So on Everest Base Camp, and that was our base camp as well, right next to it, there's a glacial lake, and that's frozen 24 hours a day, obviously because it's minus 20, minus 30. But the sun is so strong, right? Because the sun is like 5 kilometers closer, and then the atmosphere is so thin, there's no ozone layer, that the sun actually gives you third-degree burns. So it's like very direct hitting sunlight. And when it hits the ice, the first 6 feet becomes slushy. It doesn't melt, it becomes slushy. So obviously no one has swum there because you're sitting there with 6 layers on clothing, and no one just thinks of going crazy and taking their clothes off and jumping into that water. So, but I came to know that a British guy who's now known as the Iceman, you see on Nat Geo, his programs, he goes and swims in the coldest waters in the world. So that was apparently one of his first swims, and he broke a record there, became a huge record, that highest altitude swim ever by a human being in the coldest waters for the longest time. And that was around 9 seconds then, because apparently after 7 seconds, your blood, which is at 37 degrees, it's a liquid, it starts freezing, and this oxygen supply to your brain freezes. So while nobody does anything stupid or dangerous there, is because the nearest medical help is 4 days walk. There is no helicopter rescue possible, very tough there for helicopters to land. And there are no actual medical good facilities right there. It's like way off in the world. Nobody screws around there. So that guy came and did it because that was his profession. And I did it because I'm crazy. No, it's because it was a challenge and I wanted to prove we were the only 2 Indians in an all-white expedition. And the challenge was that the British can do it and so can I. And the entire thing is I'm not a good swimmer. That means I'm a swimmer as much as you are in a swimming pool. With cold water, I'm so shit scared. Even nowadays in summer, I have it with hot water. So I'm in fact not like, that I'm very tolerant of extreme temperatures. I'm not. It's just a matter of believing in yourself. And that's where I learned that if you believe in yourself, you can actually go ahead and do anything you want. I did it for 11 seconds, beat his record for 2 seconds. And that's how it became a Limca Book of Records and Asia Book of Records as the highest altitude swim in the coldest waters, which is such an accidental record because somebody had told me when I was trying to prepare for the mountain and doing all that, we are taught that you do not take extra risks there at all. You do not do anything. You're slow and you're meticulous. I mean, that's the last thing a mountaineer would actually go and do. And if somebody had told me that you will go and do that, I'll give you 1 crore, I would have given him a very rude answer. But then when you go there and this kind of a challenge is put in front of you and then you stupidly accept it as well, and then you have to go ahead and do it. And then prove to the whole world that, if that guy can do it, so can I. So what's the big deal? And so it's a great, in fact, and it's available on Facebook or something on India Book of Records or Asia Book of Records, that video is there. So you can see Mount Everest at the background and me jumping into the water, coming out. So the video which you don't see is immediately after that, how 8 people rushed on me with blankets and wrapped me around, took me inside the tent, put 5 heaters on me so I don't get into hypothermic shock. And, 5 doctors, physios rubbing my feet. So it was great fun. It was actually crazy, but it was great fun.
Oh,
That was the record.
That's a fascinating story. So I think it's a beautiful segue when you said you should believe in yourself and do crazy things. So this is a good segue to, I think, maybe talk about how you got into this footballing world and the ecosystem in general, right? Because we want to move towards the footballing topic. But if you could tell us briefly about how you ended up in the I-League and then with the latest petition that you guys filed on behalf of Delhi FC. And
oh my God, that's a huge story. Okay, I know you want it briefly, but okay, brief as
No, let's start with your
so you
origins.
can take your
That's okay.
time. Yeah.
the story again. A very accidental club owner. Again, to prove to it was all a battle of redemption with myself for what I was in the past and what I am now. I'm talking about past means 15 years ago and how I wanted, and then I very successfully turned my life around. So the part of redemption was to do whatever I could do before the age of 18, 19. And I had played Santosh Trophy at 19, and then I had a state for 19, and then I played the Durand Cup, and then I played all these things. I wanted to prove to myself I can do it again. So when I came back and I kind of took early retirement, as you say, retirement from the corporate world, and I didn't want to get into that shit at all because it wasn't making me happy. I said, okay, let me get back into sports. Okay, I may not be able to play to the highest level, but let me get back into what I love. So at 32, 33, I started playing football again. And I played Santosh Trophy at 33 again. So at the last one was 18 and this one's here. And that again was accidental because the players didn't come and there were the 6 goalkeepers. And in goalkeepers, I was the best. And that is one age you can actually make a comeback and actually be the best there, because that's where you actually get to your prime. So I was lucky that was my position. Playing there, the whole thing which I realized was that there was this club called JCT Pagwada, which was very famous in Punjab. And it did really, really well. And that was the only club in North India, professional football club. So that shut down. And once that shut down, and that was the time when I was playing. So I played under 19 India in 96, 97 as an international. And when I played there, our aim for all North Indian boys was to get there. And once that shut down, I saw that there is no aim left. I mean, out of every 100 footballers, 98 leave the game and only 2 are brave enough to venture out of the state. That means you have to either go to Goa or to Calcutta or to Kerala. And, the same way, it's very difficult for them to come here. You don't, at that age, when you're not successful to do this, it's very tough. So only very, very few do it. And the number who do it are 1/10 the number who just leave the game. But if there's a platform right next to your home, you definitely, because it's your dream, you definitely make the effort to go and do it. And that's why more people, it's not that more local people come to local clubs, it's just that it's right there for them to show their promise. So I knew that the talent was there, because what my team did was, for the first time, a city like Chandigarh, which is a non-existent thing, that's where I played the Santosh Trophy from the second time. So when I did that, it was a performance which was far beyond what we were supposed to be capable of. So it was very sad to see those boys just then get wasted, because I asked them after the thing, what's your plans? Nothing, we're going to study, I'm going to do work, because there's nothing there. And I knew that each one of them had it in them to go to the highest level. So I said, okay, fine, I don't have money, at least let's start a club. And what I can do is, because I'm come back into the Minerva Academy, which is my grandfather who started in 1955, which trains our officers, for getting into the armed forces, Army, Navy, or Air Force. And I started working there again. That's where I've been trained all my life to take over. So I was born and brought up to do that part. That's where the love for the country comes, because our love is from the armed forces, and this is my passion because I played football for India. Now, when I opened this club, Minerva Academy Football and Cricket Club, because that's where we were getting the money from the cricket side to pump into the football side. I was able, in just the very first year in 2013, we 6-a-side club. By 2015, for the first time, we followed a professional club, 11-a-side club. The very first year, we were state champions in Chandigarh. The very first year, we got into the second division of I-League as champions of Chandigarh. And that year, we had, in the second division, we had Mohammedan Sporting, we had Neroka, we had Dempo, who were 5-time I-League champions, and they were on their comeback trail. This is before the ISL started. This is 2015. Okay, so when we did so well, we beat everybody. We went to Calcutta and beat Mohammedan Sporting there. It was just unbelievable. But it was just, again, thinking that this is just going to be a very short journey. And yes, I've had it, because the costs running this club are 30 to 40 lakhs a year. And where do I get the money? It's impossible. I don't know why, but right from the beginning, I said, if I have to do it right, then you have to have a residential junior academy. Otherwise, every year, I will be going and trying to buy players. And so the whole aim was when we played against, so I was not lucky enough to play that match. It was my captain, Manoj Jackie. We were playing against South Korea and we lost to them 3-2. And they went on and won their Asian School Games. The difference between us and them was not much at all. And that was at the under 19 level. And then at the under 16 level, it's more equal. The difference happens at the 16, 15, 16, 17 level, when the difference between everybody and us becomes this much. If you go even lower to the under 14, 13, 12, we are even closer to them. So, and I saw all this happening and I knew it was possible, but at that time I didn't have the money when I was 19. And now I had an income of exactly 35, 40 lakhs, which is, that was the income, that was not the profit. Okay. So all the income went into the club. The very first year in the under 15 academy, we won the national title. And from that very first year was the batch which had people like Narinder Gehlot, Shubham Sarangi, Jackson, Anwar Ali, Vikram Pratap. You name the player, he was in that batch. All of them became big stars and they are currently in ISL teams. That team, within 3 years, would help me actually win the I-League. So within the 15-16, I was in runners-up of I-League. Dempo withdrew. I got in the I-League. We were 9th. The next year, we won the I-League. The year we won the I-League, we had the lowest budget in the country of 1.4 CR. The budget of Mohan Bagan, who's one player, Sunny Node, at that time, his budget was 3.9 crores, just one player's salary. Not only did we win that, we won that year the under 13, the under 15, the under 18, and the senior. So we were the only club in Indian football history to hold all 4 titles together. And at that time, ISL was just a 40-day tournament. So Mohan Bagan, East Bengal, all used to play in the I-League. So while doing this, even though ultra successful, because we won 7 junior national titles in 4 years. That means under 13, under 15, 18, 4 times in a row, 15s, and the seniors. There was no money. Why? Because all the players I used to produce were just taken away from me by these big clubs without actually paying any money. There's nothing known as a transfer fee or what you known as solidarity payments, which happen everywhere else. And I was fighting for that openly. And not only that, I was fighting for a lot of reforms, because when I got into the system, I saw how rotten it was and how corrupt it was. And when I say corrupt, it is blatantly. It's not even like parents ke samne kar rahe hain, aankh ki sharam hoti hai. Inko aankh ki sharam bhi nahi lagti. They're so blatant about it. So the only difference is that my voice, they could not shut, because my results spoke for me. Every year, in spite and despite of them being the most vocal critic, and everyone knew that they could actually go on and control results. Why? Because they used to be putting referees of their types. They used to be putting bans on me, fines on me, trying to get my team out in one way or the other. In spite of that, we won those titles. So They couldn't discount that voice. And I kept on fighting. So that is why I think then there was this concerted effort to make sure that they start this vilification campaign against me, because I was the only one standing up to the ISL. So now let's come to that factor. So in 2017-18, when we won the I League, and then I asked them, then next year they came up with this plan that ISL is going to be replaced, the I League is going to be replaced by the ISL as a top league. And overnight, for the first time in the history of football, the top league of a country is going to be demoted for no fault of theirs, is going to be replaced by a private league, which is not owned by the federation. The Indian national team will only be selected from a private tournament. The only way you can get into that tournament, it's not a league, it's a tournament because there's a semi-final and finals. The only way you can get in there is if you pay 18 crores to a private entity. And it does not depend on your merit. You can be the best team in the country. You can beat the crap out of each ISL team, but you can't get there as long as you have 18 crores a year to to pay the franchise fees. And there was no way of getting up there. You couldn't be the best in I League and get up there. So I said, what's the point? I'm already in debt of 4 crores because of my I League thing. And mainly the debt was from setting up the academy, which is now glorious. Okay, it's now known as the factory. So the interesting fact, we have produced more internationals than Tata Football Academy has in 20 years. And that's not a great thing to say. Why? Because Tata Football Academy was the holy grail of India. We needed 100 Tata Football Academies, not one TFA, and then it's shutting down, and then Minerva, and then that shutting down. We need 100 places like this. That means residential academies if we want to flourish, not one. And that's what's happening every time. So since Jamshedpur came in, all the budget of TFA went into Jamshedpur. Since ISL started, how many players has TFA produced? 0. Okay, let's get together about the whole thing about, it's an ISL thing. It's not. It's about that they are only caring about profits and commercial aspects. Why? Because if they didn't, how many players has their academies produced for India in the last 7 years? All of them put together, how many players? 0. Then they talk about players like Nemil. Nemil is not theirs. He was in a UAE academy. Then so was Sahel. Sahel was in a UAE academy. Akash Mishra was from a German academy. He was from U Dreams Academy. I'm talking about players which have been born and brought up in your academy and then make it to the national team. 0. And they were getting 2 crore rupees a year from FSDL. Why? Because it wasn't in their contract to run junior teams. Because of the licensing, they had to, under 13, 15, 18. And that is why they were asking for 2 crores and were getting 2 crores. So the budget of 20 crores was being spent every year.
So quick question. Could you just clarify what FSDL is for our listeners who might not know?
Okay, so FSDL is a company which is totally 100% owned by Mr. Ambani Reliance and Star Sports in the ratio of 65 to 35. And FSDL's full form is Football Sports Develop. The name of the company is Football Sports Development Limited. Okay, believe it or not. But the last thing they're doing is developing football. They're only developing their own pockets. See, big catch-22 situation in giving your league over to a private entity. Yes, it'll be marketed well, everything will be well, but the first thing in their mind will never be the nation. It will always be the league. So you have to see the 90% of the revenue from all leagues, including even our own IPL, is from media rights, is from broadcast rights. Now, when your broadcaster owns the league, see what kind of a conflict of interest there is. That means you'll never make money. Please understand that. And who's going to make money? It's not the league's not going to make money. Indian football will be big. If somebody would have told you guys that the IPL will get 50,000 crores 15 years ago, you would have slapped him. What the hell are you? What are you smoking, man? Simple. Why? Because there was not even unheard of. Now, the biggest middle class, untapped people who are left to follow the game of football is only India. And this is the next big market. It is going to get big. It's going to get huge here. So when the 50,000 crores or whatever amount there is, it comes into Indian football, it will not come into Indian football. Because when it comes into IPL, it comes to BCCI. BCCI has to spend it back into Indian cricket. They can't put it in their pocket. Whereas if it comes to a private company, they have no rules or regulations which say that you have to pump that money back into Indian football. So you have to see that right now the image which is being shown to everybody that is for the good of the game, is for commercialization. If that was true, then you would have built academies and centers of excellence all over India. You would have got coaches from the best academies in the world and done it all over India. The Reliance Youth Foundation League wouldn't be just for the 5 ISL teams. It would be open to the entire country because you are supposed to be developing the entire country. not just those 5 teams. See, the pyramid in our country, pyramid means the structure of football, which is supposed to be in any country, it should be like this pyramid, as the name suggests. In India, it's like this. Why? Because top there are 13 teams, and then you have a I League with 11 teams, then you have second division with 8 teams, and then you have nothing. Whereas it's supposed to be like this, and there is no money trickling down at all. So I fought for this for a long time. And then when we had these rules come in that now academies have to be paid money, and when I asked for the first time transfer fees from people were looking at me with like, I've asked for something which is so horrible and how can you do that and types. But that's how academies will run. If academies do not make money, how will they run? It's not that I'm making any money at all. Trust me, football is not the business you get into to make money. But at least it's viable. It's getting viable. At that time in 2019, I sold my club to Roundglass Punjab. Now, Roundglass was a company owned by a rich millionaire from the US. He wanted to give back to India. He's opened a hockey academy and a tennis academy and a football academy by the same name. So his aim was to get into the I League without having to go through from the bottom to the top. And he had the money to do it. So he gave me a good offer. So what I sold to him was the name Punjab FC along with the players I had from 13, 15, 18 and senior. Because my infrastructure was still there. That's the factory. All I have to do is change the name and start producing again, because it's actually a factory. It's an environment you put them into and they will progress. It's not rocket science. Football is not rocket science at all. Now, within a year, 2 years ago, I bought this club called Delhi FC. Again, yes, we were Delhi champions. Then we won the first ever National Futsal League, which they did. And we were National Futsal champions. And then we got into the Durand Cup last year. We were the quarterfinalists and we beat Kerala Blasters and we were drawing with Bangalore FC. And that was the first year in football. But just showing to the world that if you go through the right process and if you have invested in your youth, you can actually do this again and again and again and again, because that's merit. So that was the football journey till now. Proud to say that when Minerva was there, we were ranked in the top 1,000 clubs of the world and the top 100 clubs of Asia. And that's where we ended.
That's awesome. I think there are so many threads, I guess, Aniket, we can pick out from what Ranjit had just said. But I think let's first get to the main news at hand, right? Which is that FIFA, the World Football Governing Body, has banned AIFF, citing third-party influence. Now, there's a whole timeline of events that has transpired that has led up to this point. I know, Aniket, you have a whole timeline laid out, which involves the Supreme Court, the COA, and the committee that was formed, the advisory committee of which I think Ranjit is the chairman, and so on. So, Aniket, let's go through the timeline briefly, and then we can ask. I know you can ask questions based on your timeline.
Yeah, and Ranjit, you can feel free to add up. So as I go the timeline, any events you want to add to it. So I think that will hopefully convey a more structured this overview, because this is an absolute storm. Just the size of this event, the number of bodies involved. So our aim is to try and explain to folks why this has happened, and obviously we cannot solve it ourselves, but at least to let people be informed and let them decide what the right steps for sport in India should be, because I think what happens here percolates to other sports, right? So it's not only about football in India, but it is about the larger sporting ecosystem. We clearly have cricket.
No. Actually, even cricket, because see, he's right, because what's happening here is that every second day the CEO has appointed some new sport. The whole point was to why the court is now coming in is because roti kapda makan of our Indians is taken care of. Okay, now we Indians can think about things like sports. That's when the Supreme Court started coming in, because they can take suo motu notice of what the hell is going on in the country in sports, because sports has become a fiefdom of just people who are there for the wrong reasons. They're not there for the development of sports.
Yep, totally agreed. Aniket.
Right. So this whole mess of the FIFA banning AIFF started about May. So May 12th was when the Supreme Court agrees to hear the first plea from Delhi FC, right, alleging that there is illegal continuation of Praful Patel as the AIFF president for over a decade. And then May 8th.
Okay, so let me So let's go back. So your timeline is to even go further back.
Okay.
So what happened was, in 2017, there was a petition filed even by this particular, now the guy who's trying to stand for president, and he might be president, Kalyan Chaube. There was a petition filed by him. And then there was another petition filed by Bhaskar Ganguly, who's again ex-captain of India, again a goalkeeper. So you'll see a common thread. The ones who are filing these petitions are all goalkeepers.
Goalkeepers.
I'm a goalkeeper. So was Bhaskar Ganguly and so was Kalyan Chaubey. So the crazy ones, okay? So this petition, which was filed in 2017, was for a different reason, was for this getting the constitution right. And then in 2019, there was a great commentator and historian called Novi Kapadia. I don't know if you've heard of Novi, sir.
He passed recently.
So Novi Kapadia, and he's died a few months ago. He passed away. So he, along with Bhaskar Da and the Supreme Court, they had given the duty in 2017 for making the constitution of the Indian football to these guys, to not, and this is not the COA, this is just Bhaskar Ganguly and Qureshi. So they took around 2 years to make the constitution after asking each and every person they could. In fact, I helped in the conflict of interest chapter, and that was what I wrote for them. And then Novi sir obviously helped a lot. So once that was given, what the legal bill of Praful Patel from 2019 to 22 was, when I say Praful Patel, it was for AIFF paid his legal bills, was 3 crores. And the only hearings which happened during those times, other than 2 years of COVID, was how to delay that case coming up. Because he knew that the moment the case comes up in the Supreme Court, he will be thrown out because he has overstayed his election. See, you have to understand that normally what FIFA does in any other country is if a president overstays his democratically elected period, they send us something known as a normalization committee. And they take over, suspend the country, take over the country, get the elections done, and then put them on the right track. Here, what happened was we saw till 2021, it was 1.5 years, or 2022, in fact, that nothing was happening and he had no intention of leaving. Even though at that time, all the states actually got together and said, we want this guy out and we want elections. So I went in as a petitioner at that time with Prashant Bhushan, because he was the guy who was the maximum against the Supreme Court. I knew that they're going to hear him and he'll be able to get a voice in, because they used to hire these either Harish Salve or Kapil Sipal and these guys, and they were willing to pay it because it was not there coming from their pocket, man. So just getting them there, the very first petition, and my petition was, this guy is overstaying, please get elections done as soon as possible and get this guy out. That is my petition. So the court, not only in the very first hearing, when this thing came out, they heard it. From that hearing, they said, okay, this guy out. Immediately, this guy out. He's overstayed his petition and been there for more than 12 years. We don't like Algi police. And on top of that, a lot of mess is going on. Get the COA in to make the constitution, which has been there with us, apply it now. And after applying this constitution has been there for 3 years. Okay. So apply it now and get elections done. So when they said apply it, the constitution already said the eminent players. When they said apply it, the constitution was made according to 2 things. According to our national law, which is the National Sports Code, which has to be based on that. You cannot go against that. And yes, the FIFA statutes. Now, FIFA has a very strange way of following whatever it wants, wherever it wants. For example, when the European Super League happened, they came out with a statement along with AFC, UEFA, all these 6 federations, confederations came up with a statement that the founding principle of FIFA is sporting merit. And without the founding principles of promotion and relegation, our game can never be the game it is now. And we truly believe that that's the way it should stay. But where that statute is there in India for the last 5 years, they were okay with a league happening and their own league being demoted to the 2nd division, which is not even owned by them. The top league is not owned by the federation. It's owned by a private company. They were okay in that. So that was not third-party interference in any way. When a private company outside is not only controlling your national league, your national team, and everything to do with the AIFF, they're bought over, that is not third-party interference. But when my petition came in, Supreme Court acted only after 2 years of this guy illegally staying on. So they were doing FIFA's job for them. And what did Supreme Court say? Get the elections done. Get these old guys out. The guys who've been there for more than 70 till above the age of 70. Come on, man. The ones who don't, which have actual material business relations with the company. Conflict of interest galore. Get them out. Obviously. See, you can't ask us. People say that you knew that, FIFA was going to ban you. Why did you do this? So the kind of scams which came out within a month of the COA taking over proved to at least non-footballing world, because the footballing fans are very, very big, and they're only looking at their club football, okay? And they only want what's good for their club, not looking at the larger picture. Once that happened, the outcry was because their footballing calendar started getting affected. And that's what they could not take.
not looking at the fact that after 20 years, what will happen? Footballing calendar will still be the same. We only have 20 matches a year. So the problems in football are so many, and then you have no control over it whatsoever. You've given all your control away. Then the COA going in there and finding that the contract is not till 2025. The contract is apparently till 2040. And they are going to pay the same money in 2040 what they will in 2010. How is that okay? How can you sell away your national football, everything in national football for peanuts? And who are you to sell away the football? Because you've been given a mandate for 4 years. How can you sell away my grandchildren's right to see or do something with football?
So is it fair to say, just my understanding is that basically of the big nations, right? I'm talking about ours in the Indian league is one of the big private owned leagues, whereas other leagues like the Premier League, the Bundesliga and the Serie A, all of them are, the top leagues are actually owned directly
by their clubs. So they are owned by their clubs and the federation.
Yes.
They have equal shares. So the clubs and the federation have equal shares. So like in the English FA, all the clubs have a share, and an FA has an equal share equal to one club. Okay, that's what their thing is. Because it's for the clubs you making the money. How will the clubs ever earn the money if the broadcaster owns the league? Is never going to let it up for auction. It's just simple logic. For example, in the Kabaddi League, it happened. And Ronnie Screwvala, who was the owner of U Mumbai, he went up openly against and revolted against this model. All the club owners got together. The same Star Sports, who owns the league of Kabaddi as well, they did the same thing, their Reliance. And they had to go for auction. And Star Sports is now paying the Kabaddi League 180 crores for 5 years for Kabaddi. So it's not that the money is not there. It's just that obviously you will be shown that there is no money because the broadcaster wants to show you that. And they want to show you that, listen, we are doing you a great, huge favor by broadcasting football in India.
Right. And just to add to this, like broadcasting rights are a great source of revenue for any club, right? We've seen Football Club Barcelona recently staking away a huge segment of their broadcasting rights just so that they can sustain and sign players they've got on board. So, after adding that, so just to take off from where we were, so just like you said, May 12th, this Supreme Court petition that you guys had filed was there, and then the Supreme Court tells...
It started.
Yeah.
So from there it started.
Yeah.
And they were given a date. So the FIFA people came over. There was the FIFA and AFC committee which came over, and they gave certain demands, and all their demands were followed except which said that in FIFA they do not have any tenure limits. But it's our national law that we can't have a guy who's been there for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years have no limit to staying on. That's a dictatorship. Then that's not a democracy at all. And the same way, and you can't have people above 70 because that's the time they need to retire and go home the next.
Yeah, it reminds me of Sepp Blatter. Remember that guy?
Yeah, exactly. So see, that's what they want. They want. So understand, it's a very, very big... People don't understand the next FIFA elections are happening in 2023. Okay? So are the AFC elections. So people are just again looking at a very small, rigid view that, they're thinking about India. It's not about India. Praful Patel is the one who's got them votes last time in the AFC elections when the Qatar World Cup was stolen away and sold. And everyone knows about that how can a country like Qatar, come on guys, Qatar who's never done anything and win the bid over England? How can you even think of the home of football? Okay. And that's obviously has been sold out. So the FIFA files came out. In the FIFA files, openly it said the maximum amount of money, the bribes which were taken were either by African countries, general secretaries and presidents, or by South Asian countries, general secretaries and presidents. And they named all of them in the FIFA files. Okay. There's a Swiss court which has taken out warrants against Praful Patel for things which have not come out here. So this is all online, and anyone can go and search what I'm saying because my information is there from court records online. So when these things were happening, he's also a member of FIFA Governing Council. So the moment he was removed by the court, Mr. Praful Patel writes to FIFA as a FIFA Governing Council member. He's writing to FIFA saying that, listen, I am from India and it's a pleasure and privilege to be in the Governing Council, but please don't ban India. Please don't ban India. I know they have done something wrong against statues. They have removed me, but don't ban it. I know you have already banned people like Pakistan, Kenya and all this for the same thing. And I know you will never do anything different for any country and you will have to follow your own strict, very statutes. But still, I'm saying don't ban India. And he went on like this in 3 different paragraphs, urging them to ban India, saying that this is the examples you've set here for the same thing, and you better bloody do this now. And then he's trying to come in.
Sorry, I'm going to interject just to get the timeline in here, right? So this is around May when Praful Patel has overstayed. The Supreme Court says you've got to go.
And he was removed and the new body came in. Within 5 days, in May, he wrote to FIFA saying 5 days after being removed. Okay. Now, after that, he started this campaign where he started getting all the states together and getting letters written from FIFA, because FIFA, see, Infantino is very close to him, and so is this Sheikh Salman. Why? Because when he was a civil, especially when Sheikh Salman, when he was a civil aviation minister for Air India, that is the time Air India lost the maximum number of bilateral spots to Middle Eastern countries, and Air India took a dive. Okay, and that is the time this Mr. Praful Patel became vice president of AFC, 2010, 11, 12. So understand this, all a very big knot. That is the time he had a scam for flying with the Vadhavans who are in the HDIL scam, with the housing scam that HDL happened. In the middle of this, he had deals with Dawood Ibrahim and Iqbal Mushi, and he was living and doing property businesses with. In the same time, he also gets $250,000 tax-free from FIFA as a governing council member every year. That's his salary from there without doing anything. And he's actually writing to FIFA and telling them. Then he got another letter sent to it saying that if you don't do this, we'll ban you. Now, now see, FIFA has to run by IOC rules, the Indian International Olympic Council. Like AIFF has to run by their rules. So we went not to FIFA. We saw when I say we, the COAs, they saw the IOC rules. The IOC statutes say that the players can be voting. They can have voting rights. So if anything which is in the IOC has to be acceptable to FIFA by default, because they are under that. And that's what they say, that we are either under CAS or we are under IOC. So when we did that, the alarm started ringing that you are adding players, because it was taking the power away from these states. So now, why are all the states now able to, even now, Congress and BJP and everybody's come together? Now, why is that happening? See, when the states have seen that if this happens, we'll have to be, there are 36 state associations, and all states have different constitutions. There are 36 different constitutions. So AIFF is supposed to be under FIFA, but none of the states are supposed to be under AIFF. That was their law, because sports is a state subject and you cannot interfere. So what we did was put the National Sports Code in the constitution itself, that you have to follow this now. And that's the problem. They would have had to have an audit. They would have had to have the under 13, 15, 18 boys and girls league and the senior league. They would have had to participate in all national competitions. And if they don't, within a year, they're out. And we give it another body who's willing to do the same. And they cannot have anybody more than 70. They cannot have more than 12 years. You cannot give it to your mama, chacha, taya, and like they've been doing for donkey's years. So all those things have been put in. And the opposition was so vehement that they gave up all rivalries formed over the last 85 years. For the first time, actually came up with a unanimous candidate. Now, the best thing is that for the first time in the history of 85 years, both the presidential candidates are from outside the executive committee members. Otherwise, their one rule used to be that you have to be in the executive committee of AIFF for a minimum of 4 years, then you can stand for election. That means the ones they don't want to make president, they just make sure they didn't get into the EC. Simple. And this was happening all over India. So like a state like the UP, which is the largest population in India, is equal to US or almost equal to US or Europe or whatever. They have not produced any players. Why? Not because they don't have players, because there's no league which has happened in the last 20 years there. And out of 34 state associations, 28 have general secretaries or presidents who've been there for more than 25 years. So if they were doing something right, trust me, India would be at a better position. Is because all 28 of them are the same guys we are trying to get out. India's like this, because they are there just for making money. The amount of blatant corruption, okay, like for example, the treasurer of AIFF, the treasurer of AIFF was the president of Jammu Kashmir Football Association. He was a treasurer when Praful Patel was the president for over 12 years. And what has he been arrested by CBI for a month and a half back? For doing a biryani scam in Jammu and Kashmir. So out of 50 lakh budget he got from the government of Jammu and Kashmir, he showed bills of 43 lakhs of giving biryani to boys, which was non-existent biryani, which he thought of in his mind. And he gave a bill of 5 lakhs for photostat from a shop which did not exist. Now he's been arrested by the CBI for fudging. And he was the treasurer of Indian football. So this was the depth and disgusting shit we were into. When I say disgusting, that where comes the molestation and everything else which is happening to our girls. And these guys were letting it happen because even at the topmost level, the same thing was happening.
So
Now-
go ahead, Gautam. Yeah.
No, yeah. So, just the you briefly spoke about the I think it was a panel of 3 people from FIFA who came and investigated, so to speak,
It
to
was
India.
5.
Five,
There were
okay.
three from FIFA and 2 from AFC. Even the AFC Secretary General, who was Dato Windsor John, even he came himself.
Okay.
And
So they met with also the sports minister, right? So Anurag
they met with
Thakur-
everybody. They met
PM.
they met with all the stakeholders. They met with ISL clubs, I League clubs, different meetings. They met with the COA. They met with the states, and they met with the sports ministry.
So this is happening around June, right? So the timeline
Yes.
here is now this is happening around June. In May, Praful Patel was told to leave. A COA was formed, and then the COA forms an advisory committee. So I think which you were chairing.
So I was made the chairman of the committee, but it was disbanded today. The FIFA was there at that time.
Yeah.
And they really objected to me coming in because that objection was again put by Praful Patel. Because the very first day when I had come, I had got that astrology scam and the Arrows football scam. There's another scam which is going to be coming out with Deloitte out into the public within a day. And I am not, I'm a layman. I'm not good in accounts at all, man. I'm like crap, okay, at the numbers. But it was so blatant, you could see it. And when there's a company called Astro something, the first thing you see is maybe it's an Astro turf company or turf company. And then you go ahead and see it's astrology company and then you're just blown mad.
It's surprising how creative our people get to scam rather than actually do work, right?
No,
So
bro, they're not creative. How is this creative? Creative is something which you don't come to know about. But when you hire an astrologer from an astrology company and the name of the company is Nyasa Astrology Company, it's not creative at all. It's being stupid
No. I was being sarcastic. In what I meant was the way to earn revenue, right? The way to create streams
to
of
find
revenue.
another head to put it under. Yes.
Yeah.
You put it under
So
another
that
head,
way,
now
rather
you
than
find-
using these ideas to do a good job at the task you're assigned, you're doing everything except the task that you're assigned. So it seems, at least from a distance, it seems like that. And so just coming back to this.
the whole thing was every step of the way, I wanted to do stuff which was to not only, I'm talking about before May 2021, to discredit AIFF. And when I say discredit AIFF, it's not in just words, but by accent, by showing them what you can't do as a national federation. I have been single-handedly been able to do. All your academies put together have not even been able to produce the number of players my little academy in North India has been able to do. That's something I must be doing right. Learn from me. And I'm saying it's not rocket science and I don't have money. That means you can actually replicate it all over India. So they never did that. So what I did, I knew that I was going to have opposition because of the kind of radical ideas I had. Radical ideas means the idea is not radical in the world, okay? In the world, they are set standard practices. In India, they are radical because of they've never been done before. So whole point was to start at the age of 6, 7, 8. Unless you start there, you will never make it. If people talk about talent, you give Messi the ball at the first time at the age of when he's 40, he's never going to be Messi. Simple as that. He was Messi because he was playing with the ball from a structured way from the age of 5 every single day, morning, evening. Now, in India, has anyone tried that ever? No, I did. I did it for 3 years. This is my 3rd year now. So what did happen in those 3 years? Last year, we went to this MENA Cup, which is in Dubai. And a MENA Cup was a competition for all academies. So Wolves came from England and we had Strumgrass from Austria. We had Reliance Foundation from India and Tanzania's champions, CAF champions were there. And we were there and we beat Barcelona 5-0, my under 12 boys. And we drew with Man City. So see, it was just about because these boys, again, same thing about the record, believe in yourself. If you put our under 16s against Barcelona, they've lost the match before they've even entered because they think that we are so inferior. These under 12 boys didn't have any idea who Barcelona was. And they were already made to feel that you're the World Cup batch and you're going to beat them and you're going to thrash them and you're going to do this and you're going to win the tournament. Made to believe from day one. They have been born and brought up in that way that this is the World Cup batch, you're going to take India to the World Cup. So anything else is smaller. So they used to, so 1 week before that, my under 11s had this practice tournament and we had all these teams together and the main Indian Navy team, which is playing in the Durand Cup right now, they were staying at our campus because we are an armed forces campus and we were helping them train. So we had a 7-a-side tournament and the Navy team is online, by the way, you can go and see it. My under 12 boys played my Navy team and they beat them 2-1. And the Navy boys were just looking at what's just hit them. Again, because from day one, I've been playing my under 11s and 12s against the under 18s and my seniors. So the only rule is that you can't touch them. and you can't push them, and they play with one person more than the ones who you have. So they get an overload basically everywhere, and they are they're passing it out. So it's so much possible. In fact, if you put the right people in charge, Indian football can be a powerhouse within 10 years or 12 years in Asia, and within 20 years in the world. And if anybody tells you any different of a shorter timeline, they don't know what they're talking about. Because a footballer is never pretty padded at 16 into a striker. You're made into that during a process.
It's very interesting you say this, because I'm going to self-plug. So we had Baichung Bhutia on this same podcast a couple of weeks back. So he mentioned very similar things about catching them young and playing more sport. And that, I mean, it seems obvious, because this is and like I said, this problem is not unique to us, because you can see UEFA, you can see South America, you can see all these leagues are flourishing because they're doing something right. And I think it is time we start learning from their failures and their successes, rather than in 2022 trying to start with these weird notions of giving our leagues to private entities and stuff like that. But this is a side track, so let's come back again to the timeline. So in June, this 7-member delegation comes, FIFA, AFC. They meet and then basically they meet also the sports minister, like you said, Anurag Thakur. There's a whole delegation. They meet all the stakeholders in this. And after that, what actually happens is the constitution, right? So is given direction to be approved by July 31st, and then we have also dates coming out for elections, which is September 15th, if I'm not wrong.
No, it was supposed to be August 28th.
Okay.
See, this is the original timeline, and then they took it back.
Yeah,
and
right.
they said, okay, we'll have it faster, we'll have it quicker, we'll even make it quicker.
Right.
And the original date said 28th August, the elections will be over.
Right. And in the early July, the COA meets with the state association committee, right? So I think there's a 7-member state association committee that's formed.
Supposed to be representing them, but that committee members used to come and fight amongst each other. Like Shaji used to go and say things like politicians should not be allowed, and the politician next to him and said, "Hey, kya baat kar raha hai? What are you talking about? I'm sitting right here. What do you mean I'm not allowed?" So having this there right in front of the COA.
Yeah.
So the thing the state FAs were asked by the COA. Then okay, fine. You have 44 demands. They had given a list of 44 demands. He says, I'm just want to know, out of you 7, how many have played football? So none of them could actually put up their hand and say that, yes, I have. So that brought them down a notch. Then the next question they asked, out of these 44 demands, is there even one demand for the betterment of the actual game? And they couldn't even come up with one.
And this is the state association you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yeah. And all 44 were जो हमने executive committee 12 की बनाई है, I want 22. Why? Because we need more representation. Your bloody entire size is 36. How can you have 22 members in the executive committee, man? That's like number of ministers. You have 350, 310, whatever members of parliament. You can have only 31 ministers or whatever. You can't have 150. So, okay, we want 5 vice presidents. Why? What does the vice president do? Nothing. What is his job? Nothing. But why do you want it? It looks nice. We look nice having vice president next to it. Okay. Then, so we want to be president of our state and president here. Means I don't want to resign for being president of Mumbai while I'm president of India. So how can you be chief minister of Punjab and the prime minister of India? If you're elected as prime minister of India, you have to leave the chief minister of being of Punjab. I mean, how is that, asking for something? That's just logic. That's one of the demands. No, we can't give audits. Why? You're taking money from the government. Why can't you give audits? No, because it's not in our constitution. Okay, then we don't want any players in. But why the game? Say in a doctor's association, there are no lawyers. In a lawyer's association, there are no teachers. But in a footballer's association, there are no footballers. Why? Okay. So see, one by one, the demands which were asked for, also personal in nature. Personal means to gratify themselves in some manner of getting power or position.
It's exerting influence. That's pretty much it.
And that's all they wanted. And still, that's all they want. So the rot is not at the top. The rot is right at the bottom. So unless the guys at the bottom change, you can ask any footballer who's played in India, because they've not come straight into the international level. They've all come through the ranks. What have you ever faced this kind of discrimination, problem, corruption? All of them will say, yes. Oh my God, I'm just lucky that I made it. I know of at least 100 people with me who are better than me who didn't make it. Every footballer you ask will say there are at least 20 footballers who are better than me who didn't make it because the system fucked them.
So was it I'm assuming it was not a big surprise for you then when the state associations expressed their unhappiness once the final draft came out on July 18th?
No, not at all. See, we had to go according to the National Sports Code. Anything against sports code is a law. Now, if in the sports code, it says you cannot have more than 14. If we give you more than 14, then we are telling the government, we are the ones changing that law. Okay. The COA very clearly said that we will do everything according to the FIFA statutes and the statutes, and wherever FIFA statutes we don't listen to, we'll make sure it's IOC statutes because FIFA has to be under them. Now, it's a very sad commentary on India, the sovereignty of India, that FIFA is under the high courts of Lausanne. Lausanne is a district or a city or a state or whatever in Switzerland. So if FIFA are under their jurisdiction and FIFA is telling our Supreme Court what to do, that means Supreme Court is under the jurisdiction of a high court of Lausanne. That's what's happening. Because what's going to happen now, the same law, the same precedent, anything which happens in Supreme Court is a precedent. Okay? You can use that to go anywhere and get your point. Means get actually things in the High Court also. So now people like Narinder Batra or other people in cricket or people who've been taken out from other sports will just come back in using the same ruling. So this cannot be allowed. And I'm not saying that the Supreme Court themselves are going to make sure that this is not going to be allowed. It's for the good of the game. And I do not believe that the archaic rules of FIFA should apply. I think FIFA should change now. It's time enough that they change.
Yeah, and to your point also, Ranjit, there's but just the confrontation. I wouldn't say confrontation, but a clash between Supreme Court and FIFA was when the Supreme Court did direct the AFF to hold elections immediately, and also it also directed them to have 50% eminent player representation as opposed to what FIFA recommended of 25%.
25%. See how the statutes are moldable. From giving a letter that you cannot have any player representation, it's against our statutes, then trying to bargain with India and saying, okay, 50% de do. And 25%, the reasoning they gave? Because, you can't take away all the power from the states. Why do you want to give power to the states? Okay, they said we can't have individual members. So the Supreme Court made very sure that they were not individual members. There were going to be player commissions formed in every state. Every state, the players were going to vote. And one player was going to represent all those players of that state to come up. It was not going to be just that eminent player put in. This was done by the Supreme Court in a hurry because they wanted the World Cup to happen and they wanted to get the elections done fast. While doing that, that is where they overstepped it in a way, which I also feel, because the ideas and the thoughts were very noble, but the way of doing it for saving time was wrong, because then you're making sure that you're having individual members. My idea was always the Player Commission of India and states, and everybody votes to get their player representatives.
So just
for the first time, we've got somebody like Baichung Bhutia coming out and saying, for the first time in the history, people are listening to us. The great things which have come out. For the first time in India, football is being covered in all the national media, in newspapers, in TV debates. It never happened before. For the first time in the history of Indian football, and it's come because in world football, people are started talking about the fact that, don't you think why are players actually not there? Why is this happening? What is the meaning of FIFA saying players not there? What is this meaning of this? So people are not finding it right. What is the big problem of whatever mechanism you want to get? You get them in. You tell us what mechanism you want to get it in. But you can't say blanket ban on players. You cannot have players in. You can't say that. They are saying let them come in through elections. State affairs will never let them come in through elections. They never used to let even anyone in the executive committee come in to become president. That was the whole way of holding on. And how did state affairs hold on to power? By not letting new clubs come in. Why? Because that club would get a voting right and they would spoil their old quorum. What has happened to all their friends? So Gowtham and Aniketh and me, Ranjit, we opened Chandigarh Football Association. I'm just giving names, okay? This is not real, okay? So Chandigarh Football Association in 1965. So all three of us for first 10, 15 years, we had clubs. But then we got bored, man. And then all three of us got old and we got our own jobs and we don't give a fuck about CFA anymore. But our club still exists. And the president who's there is still our friend. And all we do is go once a year and vote for him. And our club's rights still stand. And he does not let any new clubs come in. So is there any actual football happening in Chandigarh? No. But on paper, yes. So where is the football going to happen? That's what's happening over India.
So just to break this down a little bit more, right? So there was a 36-member executive committee which this. So just to explain to us what this state association is, where do they come in, and then what the players in the electoral college are like. What is the role of these two bodies here?
No. So this is what was earlier. There was one vote for every state, and all states used to come in and vote for the president and for the other posts, for the 5 vice presidents, for the so many executive committee members.
This is at AIFF level, is that correct?
Now, yes, AIFF level. Now, in the states, every state had its own constitution. Yes, there were elections happening. What this constitution has done, by the way, the new elections are happening according to the new constitution with some changes. Okay, so that your state has to be membered as a member of under the Societies Act. That means it has to be a registered society. So what that does is that you come under the society's RO. That guy is checking on you every single year. Plus, you have to file your audit. Plus, you can't take any money out of society. You have to have very strict financial regulations, and it can be looked over anytime. Plus, the constitution has to be approved by this. You can't just make somebody a president for lifetime and my son president for lifetime as well, or whatever. You can't just have your own rules. So each state is supposed to have that. Each member of that state, suppose now in a city like Mumbai or Calcutta, the voting members are clubs. Okay. Whereas in a state, the voting members are district football associations. Now they have to also be there on paper. That means on societies and actually working on the ground. And each of their member clubs. So in districts, the clubs are the voting members in big states. Whereas in a city like Calcutta, then you just have directly the clubs. But in a state like Goa, the clubs are the ones who are voting members. So it's different in every state. It depends on that state, and that's the whole problem. There is no one constitution. But at least now with this constitution, the basic rules, you have to be under 70, you cannot be there for more than 12 years, and all those basic rules, which are common sense rules, come into play. And all the rules which are there have been accepted by all other sports bodies. In fact, the FIH, the Federation of International Hockey, they came there with the COA, and they said that the High Court and the Supreme Court of India, we respect it a lot, and whatever they say will be for the good of the game. So see, when you call Supreme Court third party, that's a very, very horrible and a big statement to make. It's not interference. The court never interferes. The court intervenes, and it intervenes in public interest, especially the highest court of our land does not come in and take notice of things which are not going wrong. If FIFA had come in 2020 and said, okay, Praful Patel, get out, we get a new election, this would have never happened. So I would actually blame this right at FIFA's doorstep, that they should have done this much earlier in 2020. But they couldn't. Why? Because it was one of his own powerful bodies. Now, in the elections, like you were saying, the AFF constitution now for this election will have 6 co-opted players. Now, what does that mean? Co-opted players means, according to the eminent player list, the first 4 male and the first 2 female. So that's probably, I think, Bem Devi is going to be there. And on the male side, you'll have Vijayan there, and you'll have Bhutia there. And then, going down, Shabir Ali, somebody like that, the great eminent players there.
So
now,
this is by the international caps, right? So they are ordered based on the international caps they play for the country.
Yes. See, now where that is a big problem is because earlier, the international caps used to only go to probably 4 states. That was Maharashtra and Bengal and Manipur and probably Kerala or something like that. I'm just giving an example that, it used to go to 3 or 4 states. And when that happened in this eminent list with this player list which came up that was a huge problem because you had 10 players in the males list from Bengal and 10 players in the females list from Manipur. So that became an entire voting block, and that negated the entire democratic process of having people from just one side taking over the entire federation. So instead of the number of matches, what I think it should be anyone who's played internationals and he's elected by the players, because it's an elected position. It should not be according to your number of international. Once you're an international, trust me, if you played one international also, you probably played 100 or 200 or 500 matches for your states, and for I-League or for ISL, Durand Cup, whatever, man. You reach there after a long, long way of going up. And yes, you stay there if you become an eminent player, but there's some states which have only players who play 2 internationals, 3 internationals, 4 internationals. You can't discount them out. So rather have them and not have anyone else. That's why the bar of standard was set at 1 international, not because of anything else. Because there are some states which have gone unrepresented. So if from every state you have 1 player, representing all the players. And you have, if you don't want to have one player, you can have one player and one club vote from all the clubs. And then you can have one state vote. Even have 3 votes from each state to make it actually representative of all the real stakeholders. See, the real stakeholders everywhere are the players and the clubs. There is no one else. Those are the people who are responsible for keeping the game alive. Only the players and the clubs. There is no third party. Everything is there because of the clubs and the players. Simple.
Right. And so again, just to clarify, so currently what the proposal is to have a 36-member executive committee which is run by the states. 22. Okay. All right.
The general body is 36.
Okay. All right.
And the 22-member executive committee, usme se you've got 23, sorry. You've got 6 players.
I see. Okay.
And 4 male, 2 female. And they are co-opted according to the list. The 17 members are elected as executive committee members. Then in that you also have one president, one vice president, then you have a treasurer, and I think you have an assistant secretary also, something like that.
I see. So while all this is happening on the 6th August, right? So unfortunately, that's when the first threat comes from FIFA to actually ban AIFF, which would directly affect India in the stake of India, because the women's under-17 World Cup is coming up.
So that is the ace they had up their sleeve. The ace they had up their sleeve was the FIFA World Cup happening. Trust me, guys, if the FIFA World Cup was not here, guaranteed this ban would have gone on, because the Supreme Court wouldn't have bent. Because it actually meant for the first time Supreme Court reversing its mandate and going back on its order and doing that on an international stage. Please understand what's happened here. We have been made to take back the order in an international stage. Now, all countries abroad and all other sporting organizations and all other companies know that you can actually threaten India. Why is there a policy not to deal with terrorist demands? Because of that. Because once you listen, then every terrorist knows that all I have to do is put a gun to your head and you will bend and cow down. Now, I'm not saying that, you're India and you try to be nationalist and say, oh my God, we are India, we are this. No. The point is that your national law has to take precedence over any sporting body's law. And if your national law, according to it, makes common sense, suppose a sporting body tomorrow, FIFA changes its laws and says that we will only have people who are above 90. How can we be okay with that? Their laws may say anything, but we talk about common sense. They are there because of the corruption cases against them. Now, when the letter came from FIFA that, we might ban you, immediately an audio tape leaked. The audio tape was purportedly a meeting between Praful Patel and all the 35 state FAs, where he's heard telling the state FAs that, listen, I am the one who's sitting there and getting these letters sent. You better understand it. This is to help you guys. Now, this letter which I've got sent for the threat of FIFA, take this letter to the Supreme Court, file a petition there, say that this has been sent and we'll get a ban unless and until you throw all the players out. Understand, guys, if the players come in, we will lose all our power. This is to protect your power. He said it in those words. The transcript was made and a contempt of court was filed against these guys. That you are actually conspiring against India, man. And then we came to know immediately when we filed the contempt of court, 2 days after that, India was banned, 3 days after that. Now, what we came to know, India was banned unanimously by the governing council. Now, what a unanimous vote means is that no one objected. And this guy was right there. Can you believe that an Indian is sitting there because he's an Indian, he's there because of AIFF, and his country is getting banned and he doesn't say anything? So why didn't he resign till now? In protest and disgust of how dare FIFA ban India. Or at least say something when FIFA banned India. Say that don't ban India. Why are you banning India? This is wrong. The elections. See the reason they used in the FIFA's, when the FIFA ban came out. So FIFA took out a press release. It's on FIFA's website. Second paragraph said that FIFA's banning India and the only way to get this ban out is to repeal the ban of the COA and to hand over the charge to the existing AIFF administration and to get the elections done. So where were we at that time? We were 6 days away from elections happening. So COA mandate, people don't understand, or had already ended when? Once the constitution was given to the Supreme Court and the RO is the returning officer of the elections, is appointed, the COA doesn't have any mandate anymore. They're out. Those three people were out the day the returning officer was appointed, because then this is the job of the RO to come and file this. So now when the court came to know that this kind of shit is happening and the people our own people are trying to subvert, they took it very seriously. But at the same time, the government was the one who supported the idea of players coming in. The government was the one who made the sports code law. And then the government is the one who this time went and said, okay, leave it. Let's just listen to FIFA because the World Cup is on. Now, in a very veiled way, they said it very openly that let the World Cup be over in October and we'll take up this contempt of court petition again.
Yeah, and just to give a timeline to this, so on the 10th of August, the COA filed the contempt of court against Praful Patel and his folks, for a lack of better word, the other people that he spoke to. So this was on the August 10th, and like you said, the 15th, FIFA holds its ground, and 16th, 6 days after, is the actual suspension of the AIFF that actually comes into play from FIFA. And then obviously everyone's on panic stations, and then what you said happened, right? Basically the government also put in a plea at the Supreme Court to say that, okay, let's listen to FIFA, let's agree to their mandates, and then basically I think this, like you said rightly, is because to enable the Under-17 World Cup to go through, because...
See, not only that, why it was so to enable that, because the SG and even our lawyers, all the lawyers, and I always, my Prashant Bhushan and even Rahul Mehra, who was the guy who's the activist who's got all the sports reforms started and done, kind of kept quiet, because they said, okay, fine, let the FIFA World Cup happen, because it's not a thing which is going to keep happening, hanging over our head. This is the ace up the sleeve. This is a threat they can pull off, and they've used they've used that card, and doesn't matter. So either we'll have to stand up and be prudes and say, okay, fine, go take your World Cup up here, we don't care. But at the end of the day, we do care. The only way currently, unfortunately, India is ever going to get near a World Cup is if we host it.
Yeah. And I must state this, that it is actually a wonderful opportunity for the women and the girls who are going to play. They need opportunities like this.
It's a big boost. I'll tell you for a fact, and you can now this can be taken down as a quote when today's the day I've said it. The Indian women's team will reach the World Cup much before the Indian men's team will. I guarantee it. So we need to support the women's even more than the men if that is possible. Why? Because our chances of having world success are much more. For example, our women's players the best women's players are already playing in the best European Champions League clubs. There are 2 or 3 women who are playing in European clubs. So the standard we want to set for our men are already being achieved by the women. I mean, the ranking is also in 50s or 40s. So the way they have to travel is much further. So see, the revolution has to come some way or the other. Doesn't matter. Even if the men have to be shamed into it, doesn't matter. That's the way it takes. If that's what it takes. Because trust me, the women will get there before. And this can be a huge fill up, because till now, AIFF has done whatever it can to make sure the Indian women do not come up. In fact, they've gone the opposite way around. They have made sure there's no women's committee. They've made sure there are no women's funds. Everything, this women's league which started after the clubs and the women in India pushing AIFF for so long. And just because ISL was not interested in it, they were not interested in it. And there was no money in it, so they didn't want to do it. That's where a national federation comes in. National federation has to make sure that the money is not the factor which they look in when they have to develop and promote sports. And now with women coming up all over the world, look at the US women, man. Look at how good. Look at the difference between, I'm not talking about game standard. I'm talking about mentality of the people there in the US and how they treat their female counterparts compared to how in India it's done. It's a joke.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think FIFA had their ace up the sleeve, and that they did play that. And I think for for big picture, given the overwhelming benefits of the World Cup to be hosted in India, I think they had to kind of make...
Everyone was agreement. there that we want the World Cup. Nobody wanted to say that, everybody was actually working towards that, bending over backward. In fact, the Supreme Court was bending over backwards to make sure it was happening. Government was bending over. The CEO was doing it. Everyone wanted it. And unfortunately, except Praful Patel and the states, everybody else were on the same page.
Yeah. So after that, we will move on to the 19th of August, where 7 names were nominated for the AFF president's post. I think that includes Bhaichung Bhutia and the aforementioned Kalyan Chaube, Valanka Alamov.
Let's not even discuss those names, Bhai, because see what happened was, because that was again overruled, and then that was the time when the players were still supposed to be there. Now, because then the Supreme Court removed all the players, so all the people who were nominated or seconded, proposed or seconded by players went out and they had to be renominated. What happened the second time was so interesting that all the states got together, and even the rivals, that means the ones who were political rivals and even rivals on the football association stage or whatever you call it, joined hands and came out with a joint candidate in Kalyan Chaube. But the interesting thing is, at least he's a football player as well. At least he knows football. I mean, he knows the game. Same way, we had a great legend standing up and saying that, football players have finally been given a voice. And all players in India loved the idea because they were given a voice for the first time. See, I have an Armed Forces Academy, that means the Army, Navy, Air Force, So there's a big quote which we have put up on the wall, which says that the chances of this generation joining the armed forces directly and proportionally depends on how the last and previous generation and ex-war heroes were treated by the last generation. When I see that these days, I'm talking about a normal father or a mother, that if my kid is into sports and he's into football, and at the same time, I can just switch him over to cricket with just a little nudge. Because I can see a cricketer who's playing in the Ranji Trophy or under 22 or under 19 also is making enough money for his household. Whereas a guy who's played for India for over 100 internationals is still living in, I'm not talking about, I'm just saying, giving an example, like still living in a life which is not even a legend's life, and no one's even talking about him. No one cares about him. No one gives 2 rat suits up. The moment he retires, his life is over. So the only way of doing it is by showing respect. And the only way these guys will ever be shown respect is if you give them power. And then they say, why can't, the argument on the other side is, okay, why can't you? Which means to say football players can't be corrupt. Yes, obviously they can be corrupt. Everybody can be corrupt. But understand that somebody who's got nothing to do with the game and he's coming into the association only for running the association is not the right person for it. If you've got a guy who's a sports administrator, different job, professional, brilliant. If you got a guy who's coming in because he's an ex-footballer, at least he's starting from a little higher level from the base. He knows the problems of a footballer. And suppose I'm a legend and I played 100 matches for India. I'm known throughout my country, okay? And everybody respects me and loves me. I know if I do corruption and that thing comes out, all I've earned in my 35, 40 years career will go down the drain like that. Because I have a reputation to keep. I'm here because of my reputation. I'm a legend, like they say, because of my reputation. You think legends will let go of their reputation like that for scams, for biryani scams, or for astrologers? No, they will never. And if they do, serves them right. They've just lost their legendary status. What do these crooks lose? First they do HDIL scam, then they do Air India scam, then they do Badwan scam, then they do Iqbal Mirchi scam, and then they do football scam. And they're still there. Because that's their job.
No, it's interesting you made the connection to the armed forces. So just for background, my father was in the Indian Navy. He was a serving officer there. So I totally associate with what you said is how you treat your veterans is going to tell you how your future generations are going to turn out to be. And that's a very quote that's very close to my heart. And I think, so finally, the last step, this on August 22nd, this is the update we have, right? The Supreme Court issues a series of directives. One, that AIFF must be run by the Secretary General for the foreseeable future, and COA would cease to exist.
So the second part of that press release, which I said it has to be AFF administration, immediately, thank God for it, Supreme Court put its foot down. So the message sent by SG, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, to the AIFF, to the FIFA was that we are going to listen to everything you're saying. But if you insist on this part, that it will be handed over to the same people, we will put our foot down and we will take serious action. That means they wanted Praful Patel to come back along with the ones we've got thrown out for corruption cases, Kushal Das and all the party, to come back into power and get the elections done. And that was the entire basis. The Supreme Court put its foot down. That they did not allow. So AFF administration, this Sunando Thar, who was the acting general secretary, was appointed by the COA itself. And he was appointed and he was also approved by the state member FAs and approved by FIFA. So that is the guy who they've handed over this till the new elections are done. But apparently, or not apparently, rightly, he doesn't have any role. His role is zero. Why? Because the same way COA's role was zero. The role is all of the RO. So once the election procedure starts, only the returning officer or the ARO, the assistant returning officer, can get in and do anything, take nominations, reject nominations, file a nomination, or do anything to do with elections. It's got nothing to do with anyone else. Yes, day-to-day affairs, but already being run by AFF people. Even before, when the COA came in, you think the COA is going and making selections of national teams or doing all that shit? No, man, people were running the same thing. What were they doing? They were making sure the payments which were being made, they were being made after proper check. That is how they came to know of all the scams. Because they actually tried to pass off the bills when the CEO is sitting there with the astrology thing. ये 15 लाख देने के थे, कौन से 15 लाख के? ये final payment है सर. कौन सी final payment है? ये जी हमने पहले जॉब की हुई है, ये astrology company को जाने. What? That's how the scam.
So so this is the first part. Then the other directive that came out was the executive committee shall consist of 23 members, right? We've already spoken about this. 17 will include treasurers, will be elected by the Electoral College of 36, and 6 members drawn from eminent players, like you already mentioned. 4
so 36 में से 2 को हटा दिया states को because of existing current cases against the state and not having elections. I think one was Jammu and Kashmir, and I think one was Tamil Nadu or somebody like that. So there are 34. So out of 34, 22 will be executive committee. Matlab 1 in 2, 17, because 5 or 6 are placed. So 1 in 2 states will be in the executive committee. Okay, go on now.
And then there'll be 6 eminent players. 4, like you said, will be represented for men and 2 for women. And this criteria is based on internationals, like you said. So there'll be descending order of players depending on the caps you have. And then you go along the list like that. And then the last one is, which we spoke early on, is the election is due on the 28th of August, right? And should be deferred by a week to adjust for all these changes.
So 5th September is apparently the date which is going to have the elections and also the counting and results.
And so the only thing that comes to my mind is the perfect time to fix yourself is the perfect disaster. And it seems like AIFF and Football India have hit the perfect disaster that can happen. And we hope we use this. There's no better opportunity than a disaster. So we hope we use this opportunity to reform ourselves. I
totally agree. You can't see you hit rock bottom now. Once you hit rock bottom, you can get up. So I think I really hope our rock bottom has come, and we cannot go worse than this. See, the whole point was people coming in, interfering. COA, Supreme Court, me as a petitioner, these things are happening because things are not right now. There is something wrong. That is why people are trying to come together, make changes. If things are going well, if we saw our rankings going up, we were in contention with the World Cup. And see, we are not asking for the world. Why? Because in all other sports, Indians are now in the top 10 or world beaters. You name the sport, we are doing well in it. There's no sport where you can say, oh, Indians can't do well in this. And they used to be 10 years ago. We say, okay, this sport mein to hum kabhi kuch kar hi nahi sakte. There is no sport left like that except football. So bloody hell, man. If a country like Vietnam, who 10 years ago we beat 3-1, was in the last spot of getting to the World Cup and guaranteed Vietnam next time will qualify. Why? Because they invested in the youth. We could have done it. We are a giant. And we've got the genes to be the best in the world in sports like boxing, wrestling, weightlifting. So stamina and power are not the things we are lacking in. If we can do it in hockey, in team games, we can beat countries which play well in football. So Spain, hockey, Germany, hockey, England, hockey, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, Japan. How can you thrash them in hockey and then be so far back in football? So it's not, then we don't have the money. No, Brazil doesn't have money. So these, not enough people play football in India. What the hell are you talking about? The Iceland, there are 3 lakh people, total population. 3 lakh Diwali ke mele pe hote hain. That's my famous, I love saying that again and again. It's true. So it's just here. And it's here, it starts with the belief in yourself. And again, belief in yourself. And not just, dreaming big. Working towards it every single day, hard work towards it, and you will achieve your dream. It's not rocket science. It's just, yes. And employing the best practices in the world. Indians are the best, by the way. You go any Premier League club, all the analysts, all the IT staff will be Indian. So our brains are the best. That's what you're saying. But our bodies are shit. Is that what you're trying to say? 90% of the game is here. I'm not kidding. If I've got footballers and if a guy is physically stronger and mentally stronger, I'll take the mentally stronger guy any day, any single day. And we Indians can do it, but we need right leadership and we need right support. So hopefully with this thing coming in, but by the way, people are not realizing it in the October, moment the World Cup is over, this will be heard again. And then maybe the changes come which we are desirous of, as long as these guys don't screw up and these guys do a good job, all for it. See, hope is what keeps us alive. If we don't have hope, and it's just not hoping, it's working towards that hope every single day, morning till night. And I'm doing that every day in my academy. So all these people keep on saying World Cup, World Cup, World Cup. I'm doing it every single day, getting these boys up, ages of 6 to 8. And, in 10, 15 years, if you're not there, we'll be somewhere nearby. Aim for the sun, you'll hit the stars, man. Aim for the top of the tree, you'll never get off the ground. Simple.
Reminds me of that quote from Shawshank Redemption, which says, hope is a good thing. Maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. So hope is always a good thing.
This is, again, like you said, we are going to... this is not the last time, at least we here at News Laundry have this conversation, right? So it was extremely fascinating. And just to give you a little background, the whole reason of this podcast coming to existence was to talk about the sporting ecosystem in India, right? So we always have, at least in my experience, it's been about the athletes who won, and then we bring them back home and we celebrate them like heroes. But it's seldom that a conversation is spoken to about people who are administrating, who are journalists. There's a full back end, there is physios, there is a backroom staff. There's a group that helps these athletes get successful. Journalists are included in that.
By the way, Aniketh, you're so right. And that's what we keep on forgetting. We keep on trying to develop only footballers. Unless we develop each and every position along with, I'm talking about biomechanic experts, I'm talking about hydrotherapists, massage therapists, analysts, football commentators, even the guys who are the media guys who do with football. We have to develop the entire coterie, because development cannot be single-handedly of one thing. The entire ecosystem, like you said, the ecosystem. Tom Bayer says, culture eats talent for breakfast every single day.
And it's fascinating you say this, because our goal with this podcast is to start a conversation, right? To talk about these things. So at least from our side, we definitely will come back. And this was a fascinating conversation. I think we can go on for about a couple of hours, because there's just so many threads to pull here. And we hope to have you back again when the dust settles down. Hopefully you had a good time as well. Gowtham, do you want to add something?
Nothing more to add other than to say that thank you so much for coming on, Ranjit. But I think we should end on a bit of a lighter note, because I think we spoke a lot of technical legalese and the rules and all of that. But
good news to come out of Indian football in the last 1 year.
Yeah.
For the first time in our history, 2 boys have been ranked in the top 60 Guardians list. So this list comes out by the Guardian newspaper, and they ranked the top 60 talents of under 16. So last year was Himanshu Jangra, and this year was Bikash Shumna. And the same list where people like Messi and Haaland have been there on that list when they were 16. So we are going to get there, guys. We're going to get there in our lifetime. Don't worry.
There you go. 2026 is when the World Cup is happening in the US. I know it's probably a little bit of a pipe dream for now to see India there. I know it's too hard, but man, wouldn't that be great? But then, as you said, we are things are looking up. It's not as if there is no ray of sunshine. We do have a ray of sunshine. So there are more than one. But yeah, let's leave on some predictions, Ranjit. I know you probably follow the Premier League and the La Liga and all of that stuff. Do you have any big picture predictions for the season?
The Premier League is turned upside down. Normally, it used to be Arsenal at the bottom, right, in the beginning of the table.
Yeah, it's weird.
Beginning of the season. But Arsenal is the club which, I was in 98,000. I was in England, and that was the club which I used to be internally in there, and it's invincible. So I really hope Arsenal pull off a victory. But I don't think Man City will be taken, especially with getting all these years saying that they don't have a striker, and they've been doing this. Now they've got Haaland, man. I don't think we can go wrong there.
So, and one more thing. So, do you have any recommendations for our listeners to enrich their lives? It's anything. It could be a book. It could be a movie. Just so that they learn something and they enrich. Anything about your whatever you want to recommend. Feel free.
I wouldn't recommend. I would just say that even if you want to be world champion, your only competition is you. You have to be better than what you were yesterday. And that just goes, and I'm not just saying that. If you want to be the fastest man in the world, you don't go for 9.58 tomorrow. You first time yourself, and then you better that time every single day by this much. And if you are better than what you were yesterday every single day, one day you will beat Usain Bolt. So always remember, your only competition is you. The only person you can't lie to is yourself. And that's why you compete with yourself every day.
Wonderful.
Aniketh, do you want to leave us with some recommendations?
So I have a couple of recommendations for our listeners. Actually, a lot this week. So the first thing, Ranjit mentioned Arsenal. So on Amazon Prime Video, there is All In or Nothing with the Arsenal Football Club and with Mikel Arteta at the helm. I watched that. I actually binged watched that. It was just fascinating in terms of a lesson in leadership, a lesson in team spirit, what you could do. So I would recommend our viewers to go watch All In or Nothing Arsenal. I think I'm excited to see them this year. They made some wonderful purchases in the transfer market as well. So you have Jesus and
still kept abreast of the FFP, the FIFA Power Financial. Somehow they've done it, and I don't know what they've done. They've done it.
It comes from their owners, I think, because they've always been like that, the Cronkies. But
there's that, and then there's a US Open happening. So there's also another Amazon Prime Video sport. It's called Emma. It's about Emma Raducanu. It's a 30-minute video on how she was a qualifier to an US Open champion. So I think it's a short watch. It's a fascinating watch just to see a 19-year-old.
There's another one, Aniketh, which is coming on Amazon Prime as well these days, the Untold Stories. So in that, the untold sports stories of some of the greatest sportsmen who've been there and the kind of stories it's really crazy. There was one of Marty Fish. Then there was one of this guy who used to be playing in the National Football League, and he was a double murderer, and how did that happen? It's just mind-blowing, the kind of sports stories you see. Yeah, that's really
I think
great.
there is a new one out on I don't remember who, but I saw one more Untold Stories. I think there are a couple of new
so the new one, and they're really, really good, and they're short 45-50-minute ones. Good viewing.
And then the last two would be related to the topic we spoke today. So Yusra from News Laundry has a wonderful explainer on this whole AIFF ban, of what it is, just so that you can wrap your head around what's happening to Indian football. I think it's important we at least know, and knowing will be the first step to inform our next decision. So that's the video by Yusra, and also Apurva Mandhani from The Print has a timeline of the events that happened. So if you want to clarify, if you feel a little confused after what this conversation is, I think if you listen to that, it's an 8-minute video, so you'll get the context of what exactly we spoke about and why it's important we speak about this. So those are my recommendations.
Awesome. Aniket, actually, you took a couple of mine, so that's good. I'll have a couple of recommendations. The one is, I think there is a latest Netflix documentary that came out on Luis Figo. It's called The Figo Affair. I feel like Luis Figo is one of the more undercovered athletes, because there's Zidane, there's Ronaldo, but Luis Figo is not covered as much. So it's called The Figo Affair.
Actually, because he was not, out there in your face, an extrovert, flamboyant.
Yeah.
He was, but class of that man was, in fact, if not better, as good as the ones you've just mentioned before.
Oh, absolutely. He was right up there. So this documentary essentially covers the phase of his life when he controversially moved from Barcelona to Real Madrid. At that time, it was huge. I know there is a pig head thrown on the field and all that.
If you actually look at what that means, people who don't follow football don't understand what that means. It's like I'm not kidding when I say this. It's like somebody from India taking a Pakistani citizenship. I'm not kidding. That's what it means. Yeah.
Crazy stuff. And it was a direct transfer. So it was a huge thing back then when he moved from Barcelona to Real Madrid. So do check that out. It's called The Figo Affair on Netflix. And the last one is News Laundry. Guys, go to News Laundry, subscribe, pay to keep news free. It is we've seen how the news cycle is every day, every night. So better don't look at it, but just come to newslaundry.com. You can subscribe to it for as cheap as $300 to $400. So go check it out. We have a whole lot of podcast series. We have a series called Let's Talk About. I've just listened to on the RSS, and it's a great oral history of that. So
and it's still News Laundry is not owned by any of the big conglomerate.
Exactly.
Okay, and
it's owned by the subscribers, so yeah.
It's the only one now.
Yeah. So absolutely, go check it out. And with that note, but again, we leave you with great thanks to Ranjit Bajaj for joining us. Thank you, Ranjit.
Thank you so much for having me, Gowtham. Thank you so much for having me, Aniketh, and Team News Laundry.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.